You are talking to her at a bar. She tucks the same strand of hair behind her ear, then repeats it 30 seconds later. You assume it means nothing, maybe, but her hands get busiest when the conversation turns personal. Men watch her eyes and miss everything happening below them. Here are 8 things women touch around men they want, and why her hands give her away. 1. The same piece of hair, not the dramatic hair flipped from a movie. Real life is smaller. She tucks one strand behind her ear. 30 seconds later, she does it again. The strand did not escape. Her hand just returned to the same root. You see it when she is listening, when she starts answering something personal, or right after she realizes you are watching her reaction. The repetition is the tell. One adjustment fixes hair. 3 identical adjustments during the same charged conversation often have less to do with the hair than with the energy underneath the gesture. The useful moment is not when she first fixes it. It is when her hand returns after your eyes meet, after you tease her, or after the conversation suddenly feels less public. She is giving her hands a familiar task while she decides what to do with the less familiar feeling. 2. The necklace at her throat. You're standing near the end of a work event. She is telling you a story when her fingers find the chain at her neck. She slides the pendant once, lets go, then reaches for it again a minute later. Women touch necklaces for 100 innocent reasons. But attraction makes certain gestures repeat because the body looks for small, familiar movements, while the mind is busy managing a more charged interaction. And there is another layer. A necklace lives in a visually intimate area. When her fingers keep returning there, the movement naturally pulls attention toward her neck without her having to consciously present anything. She is not necessarily thinking, "Look here." That is what makes the gesture useful. Her hands may be doing the revealing before her words decide whether revealing anything is safe. 3. The ring or bracelet she normally forgets she is wearing. You ask a slightly personal question. She looks down for half a second and starts rotating a ring, sliding a bracelet, or moving a watch on her wrist. The jewelry becomes a control knob. Small repetitive movements like this often appear when a person is containing extra energy, without wanting to make a big physical display. Around a man she wants, a woman may be perfectly composed from the shoulders up, while her fingers keep making tiny adjustments below the conversation. What makes this different from ordinary fidgeting is the pattern. The movement starts when the emotional temperature changes and eases when the topic becomes neutral again. Her face may stay calm. Her hands just mark the exact sentence that mattered. 4. The glass she is already holding. She has a drink in front of her. Normally it sits on the table between sips. Then the conversation becomes more personal, and suddenly the glass has a full-time job. She lifts it, lowers it, turns it slightly, runs one finger around the rim, then picks it up again without drinking. The object gives nervous energy somewhere harmless to go. That is why the timing matters more than the glass. If she handled it constantly before you arrived, you learn nothing. But if her hands wake up after you sit beside her, after you compliment her, or after a second meaning enters the conversation, the change is the interesting part. She may be trying to keep the conversation normal while her hands quietly admit it stopped feeling normal. The first 4 all give her hands something innocent to hide behind. The second half gets harder to dismiss because the object matters less, and the exact emotional moment matters more. 5. Her phone while the screen stays dark. This one is easy to misread as boredom. She picks up her phone, turns it over, slides it an inch, then sets it back down without opening anything. If she were escaping the conversation, the screen would become the destination. She would read, scroll, type, or disappear into it. But when the phone is only being handled, it can be a prop rather than an exit. Her hands get something socially normal to do while her attention stays with you. The distinction becomes clear when the screen lights up. She glances at it, turns it face down, and continues the conversation. The phone absorbs the movement, but it never steals her attention. A woman who wants out uses the phone to leave the moment. A woman whose hands are simply restless may touch it while refusing to leave you at all. 6. Her lips, chin, or cheek. You say something that catches her slightly off guard. Her fingers touch the corner of her mouth. She rests a knuckle against her chin. She brushes her cheek while thinking about what to say next. These gestures are easy to miss because they last a second, but the face is where conversation becomes visible. When her hand travels there during the moment she feels most watched, she may be regulating the expression at the same time she is experiencing it. Maybe she is suppressing a smile. Maybe she needs half a beat before answering. Maybe the comment landed more personally than she wants to show. Her hand is not proving attraction. It is showing you where the reaction got strong enough to need somewhere to go. 7. The edge of her sleeve or neckline. Nothing is wrong with the fabric. That is the point. She smooths the same cuff, straightens the edge of a blouse, or touches the collar she already adjusted 10 minutes ago. This is different from arriving, checking her clothes once, and moving on. That is normal grooming. The conversation gets personal. She becomes aware of how she is being seen, and one small part of her clothing suddenly needs attention again. She is not rebuilding the outfit. She is discharging the self-consciousness that came with being looked at by a man whose opinion matters to her. The fabric did not change. The stakes did. 8. Her own fingers. This is the one with nothing left to hide behind. There is no necklace, glass, phone, or sleeve in her hand. So she rubs one thumb across the other, folds and unfolds her fingers, traces a nail, or presses her fingertips together while she listens to you. The movement is tiny. That is why men rarely clock it. Her hands are creating their own task because the rest of her is trying to stay composed. Watch when it happens. If the fingers become active right after a compliment, a loaded joke, or a moment when the two of you suddenly feel alone inside a crowded room, you just found the emotional beat that landed hardest. She may keep her voice perfectly normal. Her hands already change the subject. That is the pattern to remember. A glass, necklace, strand of hair, ring, phone, sleeve, or fingertip means very little by itself. The useful information is the change. Her hands were quiet, your attention became personal, and suddenly they needed somewhere to go. Her mouth can keep the conversation innocent. Her hands are often less organized. If you want the signals that come after these tiny tells, I broke down 25 of them in a guide called 25 Forbidden Signals. She's secretly into you. The link is in the description. If you have reached this far, tell me which hand gesture you have noticed most often in the comments.